Oh, I found the motherload of rare samples. Yo, what's going up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be showing off an awesome farm for super credits, common samples, and rare samples in just 15 minutes. Now, me and my trio managed to get 30 common samples, 30 rare samples, and about 40 to 50 super credits during this farm in just 15 minutes. And another thing is, be sure to watch this video through. Don't click out early, because there is a armor with a super secret ability making this farm super easy. I may even post an entirely separate video on this armor, because as far as I know, I've discovered this. I haven't seen this anywhere else on YouTube, and it makes this farm super easy. So before we get into this farm, be sure to like and subscribe. I'm trying to build a new audience on my channel for Helldivers. I have a primary and support weapon tier list coming out in the next few days, since everybody is saying the breaker is the only good primary weapon in Helldivers, and I just think that that's not true. So for this farm, like I said, we're aiming to get roughly 50 super credits, 30 common samples, and 30 rare samples in just 15 minutes. Now, depending on which one you're actually trying to farm, you want to take a slightly different method, whether you want the super credits or whether you want the samples, because if you're farming super credits, you don't actually have to extract at the end. You can just quit out the mission, and you could do this farm even faster, because once you've found all these super credits on the map, you can just quit out and you don't have to wait to extract. But with these samples, you obviously have to wait for the ship and go to the extraction. So the mission we are using for this farm is once again the defend planets right now for the robot missions, the evacuate civilians. Now these missions have a 40-minute timer if you're looking at the actual world map, but when you spawn in, the maps themselves are smaller and the timer changes to 15 minutes. And if you haven't been sleeping under a rock, it seems like a 40-minute amount of enemies are all spawning in the 15 minutes as well. However, what most people don't know is that 40 minutes worth of samples and 40 minutes worth of minor areas of interest are also on this map. So because this map is smaller and all the resources also spawn on this map is perfect for farming. You can actually just fail the mission and the ship will still show up to extract, and you can just get out with all those samples. Now, instead of being like everyone else and trying to complete this mission, spawning right in the center of town and getting to work, getting civilians to the main area, what you actually want to do is spawn in on the far corner of one side of the map and actually explore it top to bottom with some teammates. Now keep in mind, a ton of enemies will spawn. So if you only want super credits and farming those areas of interest, the difficulty doesn't matter. You can literally put this on trivial and just farm for super credits. However, for samples, the harder the difficulty, the more samples you will get. Now, for me and my trio, we did this on sewer slide difficulty because we wanted a chance at those super rare samples. And like I said, watch until I reveal that armor we're using, because this armor actually helps you find those super rare samples, nearly guaranteed. It's not 100% because you may not get to it, but nearly guaranteed as well. And like I said, the least amount of super credits we got farming every area of interest was 40, and in the background footage I happened to record, it was 40 super credits for this farm, but I do believe we got more on separate runs. Also, if someone can go in the comments below and verify if the amount of super credits are random or if it's always set to 40, that would help out the community. So if someone happens to know, please comment that down below. Now, when it comes to farming samples, you do want to put it on the highest difficulty possible. Now, we were doing sewer slide difficulty just so we have a chance at super rare samples, but I noticed that doing it on challenging is also a pretty decent farm if that's the difficulty you can handle. On challenging, we didn't get a single tank to spawn and very few hulks were spawning. It was mainly just the devastators, the heavier armored normal troops were spawning, and that was a pretty easy difficulty, and we got 17 common samples and 17 rare samples. So it does cut the farm time in about half, but it is much easier if you can't handle sewer slide difficulty. But if you can double your speed and you have a chance at super rare samples as well. Now, the other thing that's huge is I don't think that there is a rare sample farm that is consistent that people know about in this game. game yet, but we were able to get the same amount of rare samples as we were common samples. And the most samples possible would obviously be on Helldiver difficulty, but I'll be honest, on this map where so many enemies are spawning and so many tanks will spawn on Helldiver difficulty, we couldn't handle that, so we were just doing difficulty 7. And you also want to pick a difficulty that you can consistently extract on, because if you fail the mission, then you just wasted a bunch of time, and it's better to farm it on challenging if that's what you need to do to get the most samples per the amount of time you're spending. Now let's go ahead and talk about the armor I'm using. You notice I'm doing a lot of pinging on my minimap, and that's because the super secret armor I'm using is the scout armor, which is in, I think, the 5th page of the war bond. Now this armor allows you to ping the map and it reveals enemies. And basically we started doing this run and we were just kind of aimlessly running around the map trying to find all the minor areas of interest. But as we were running, I thought to myself, you know, every time we get to a minor area of interest, a few enemies always spawn on top of there. So I thought to myself, why don't I put on the scout armor, and if I ping the map and see a couple enemies, that's probably a minor area of interest. But here is the trick of this armor that the game doesn't tell you. This armor literally will tell you where the minor area of interests are. I'm blowing up the map in editing just so you guys can see that my map is literally telling me where the minor area of interests are. Now this makes it so that it's really easy to hit nearly every single area of interest. Now, you know, if you'll probably miss a couple just because it's only a 15-minute timer, but the trick to this is that enemies don't spawn on top of the super uranium usually. So this means that since the super uranium is a area of interest, this armor will tell you where that is. Now, of course, it's not 100% guaranteed, because if you don't hit literally every area of interest on the map, there's a chance you don't find it, but there is a much higher chance of finding the super rare samples if one person on your squad is wearing this. Now for the stratagems we had most success with, I'm using the ballistic shield because I like using the defender SMG, but if you're not using the SMG and you're using the breaker, just go ahead and take the personal bubble. And then I use one airstrike and the railgun, and I also like bringing a mortar. You want to take stratagems that will wipe out enemies behind you so that you can keep moving. Do not stop and fight the enemies. Now, you do want to kill the guys with the sword and the pistol because they will spawn more dropships. And you don't have to, not everyone on the team has to use a railgun, but it is important that someone on the team has one, because if a Hulk shows up in front of you, you need to kill it or he can completely ruin your run. If too many bots end up swarming you and people start dying and dropping samples and they're too hard to pick up, then it will literally ruin your run. When we started doing this farm on higher difficulties, we actually just quit out and retooled our stratagems, and these are the stratagems we came to do this consistently. Now, another thing I'm going to recommend is actually sticking together as a group and do not split apart, because this is just a quick 15-minute farm. If one of your teammates ends up dying, then pick up their samples and throw them towards the next area of interest. Throw them away from the enemies. You want to keep moving forward, and like I said, do not stop to farm bots. Now, what I recommend is pick one person on your team to wear the armor and ping the map and find all the areas of interest, and the rest of the teammates follow him. You really only need one person on your team wearing this armor. And like I said, don't let the robots distract you. Just keep moving and farm every single area you can. Oh, and also keep in mind that there are a couple samples in the main town. So by the time the 15-minute timer runs up, there's another 2-minute timer for the dropship to spawn. As soon as the dropship starts spawning, everybody move towards that town and use the last minute or two to pick up the last couple common samples there. And that's going to be it for the video. Please drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel. Like I said, I'm trying to gain a new audience for Helldivers content. I have a primary weapon tier list coming because, like I said, all I hear is people saying that the breaker is the only weapon that's good in this game. And while it is the best for non-armored targets, I don't even think it's necessarily the best for robots. And I'm going to be posting that tier list in the next few days, as I need to unlock the last 2 weapons in the war bond. I need to spend some time doing my metal farm that I posted a few days ago, so go check that out as well. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out.